Hello, good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I am Chamberlain Oso.
Good morning, I'm Neota Igbe.
Today is September 26th. It's a Tuesday morning. Welcome to the program. I'm Ayo Makinde, and let's begin the papers here this morning. We have Wale Fatade with us. He is former assistant managing editor, Next newspaper, and is commissioning editor, The Conversation Africa. Thanks for joining us this morning, Mr.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
Well, it's been a while, right?
Yeah. I think May 2022 was the last time I was there. No thanks to the road construction and.
Well, you decided to abandon also our faith. Well, we are here.
No, I hope those who have been agitating will see my face now that I come when I'm invited and when it works for me.
Well, it's interesting that you talk about, seasons one way or the other. Because this Nigerian newspaper this morning seems to be looking at something similar. This Nigeria, the lead story on the front page of this Nigerian newspaper is talking about diphtheria. Diphtheria claims 453 lives in 18 states. That's it is ascribed to the federal government, and it says Kano tops list with 6,183 cases. Yobe 640, Katsina 213, Borno 95, Kaduna 16, Jigawa 14, and 12 other states, including the FCT. Certainly something very worrisome, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and it's sad that, by the way, I remember an interview I had with Professor Oyewale Tomori, a virologist, a retired WHO top official. And it's sad that, because it's been on since last year, silently, and diphtheria is still preventable through vaccination. There's a DPT. That's the sad thing. So it shows that perhaps the gains we have recorded in our vaccination program are being reversed. That's why it's worrisome. And it's across the nation now. I think about 26 or how many states now?
Well, according to this report, it said 18 states.
18 states, yeah.
And a number of others, here and there.
He's moving on silently.
Well, still talking numbers, at the bottom of the page, Appeal Court has 39,523 pending cases, says Justice Dongben Mensem, and says FCT reform, Wike urges support from judiciary. 39,526 cases in the appeal court alone.
Yeah, basically lawyer friends I've spoken with about this. There are 2 or 3 things we could do or we should do. We should appoint more judges. The dockets of those ones that are serving are full. And then number 2, there must be an end to litigation. So how many cases should get to the appeal court? You must have a stop. Not all cases should get to Supreme Court. So that's what we have. We just have to decentralize. I mean, why I got a lawyer friend, and I hope he's listening now. He's a senior advocate. He's always been canvassing for decentralizing Supreme Court. That there should be Supreme Court in the 6 zones, the way we have appeal courts in different zones. So I hope we'll get there, because there's no way we can do that.
Yeah, quite a number of them have been talking about that, actually.
Yeah, so, and I think there was actually a session on that at the last NBA annual conference. So I think we should look into that. 32,000. I think I watched the leadership or lordship, whichever way, yesterday, and you must feel for them. Yeah. And then the way and manner judges still operate. Thank God for what we have in Lagos State, where you have electronic recording system. I'm not sure it's available across the federation. And so they still do right judgments longhand. It's tough.
I guess we'll wait to see. That's this Nigerian newspaper this morning, guys.
Let's take a look at Vanguard newspaper next here this morning. They focus on insecurity. Zamfara governor alleges FG in secret talks with bandits. They've got a host of riders here. The first of which says vows not to negotiate with bandits. Presidency keeps mum. 7 abducted Zamfara varsity students. 3 construction workers rescued by troops. And then total number of students rescued now 13. So about this negotiation with bandits, but the fact that it's on the front page, this disagreement between the state and FG, what do you make of it?
I think that does a great disservice to the to attempts at securing lives in Zamfara. And you know, Zamfara has been in the news apart from the gold mining and the other illegal mining activities taking place. I think for the governor to have come out and say this, it's so bad. And I'm not sure, I can't just wrap my head around it. When the news broke yesterday evening, I wept inside me. This has done a lot to damage whatever talks that the federal government might be holding with bandits. And I think in Zamfara, I think it's an APC person that is the governor. I should think so. And so if there are internal party politics or party issues, it should not be brought into this place. Those students that were kidnapped by the Federal University in Gusau, I mean, they are still out. Fine, some have been rescued. What about the rest? This is bad and should be condemned. Whatever issues you have, there are proper channels you could raise this. I mean, the governor must have direct access to the National Security Advisor. He must have access to the president himself. This is very bad. Very bad. It should be condemned, this statement.
So, now the thing is, I mean, he's a PDP governor, actually.
Oh, he's a PDP governor. But that's
now, the fact that... Yeah, so... But the fact that if this is... I mean, as it's on the front page, it must have been quoted. So if FG is going ahead and negotiating with bandits, and the state governor has maintained that they will not negotiate with bandits, different perspective here. Some may think, well, if FG was going ahead to do that, why didn't FG even talk to him? Because he's the chief security officer of the state, and that may, in other words, probably either undermine or weaken the overall efforts to ensure security of lives and property, first and foremost, of people in Zamfara, because he has to play a huge role as well to ensure that FG's efforts don't go in vain.
Kimberly, we can... I'm not a staff of the National Security Advisor's Office. I don't work with Malam Nouri, but whom I've not seen for almost 10 or 12 years. But I think it is bad. I'm still insisting that. I mean, whatever he's doing, the evidence stares all of us in the face. There are problems in Zamfara. The UCOM members that were kidnapped over a month ago, nearly 2 months August, they have not been rescued. I mean, hardly a day passes that we do not have issues of bandits attacking villagers or kidnapping people in Zamfara. I mean, I don't know, and I don't know. Perhaps the National Security Advisor Office themselves could not trust him. Perhaps he's complicit in something, we are not sure. But I'm still insisting, whatever issues you might have, channel that through the appropriate medium. You don't come on here and blow this out of proportion. This has done incalculable damage to that prosecution of the bandits, or trying to arrest or trying to rescue those that have been kidnapped.
So now, if this were the case, does it then mean, because I think, if I remember properly, I think the same NSA also was quoted some report saying ransom or funds paid to bandits were used to fund terrorism. Now, if this headline is the case, FG negotiating with bandits, do we then say that this is the formal thing now? Government negotiates with bandits, contrary to what many who would have thought, that the position of FG is that we do not negotiate with bandits.
Terrorists. Foreign governments, national governments across the world maintain we don't negotiate with terrorists. But you and I as journalists know that's a lie. Even the United States government, they use back channels, they call it. They talk to terrorists, they talk to kidnappers. And for me, I think whatever we could do as a country to rescue those that have been kidnapped. I mean, the last time you brought that gentleman from NYC on your show, I think about 2 weeks or whatever, I nearly smashed my screen.
Yeah.
Because it was when he was arguing that it's because the guy is not the direct father, he's a guardian, whatever. And I said, does this gentleman know what it takes to produce a university graduate? And somebody trying to come in from Akwa Ibom or Cross River, and you waylay them, you kidnap them, no information, nothing. No, I think for me, the idea that we don't negotiate or we don't pay ransom, you and I know that's not correct. That's the official position maintained outside, but there are negotiations at the back that take place. And it has been happening right from the time of, was this late general that died, Azazi, down to the gentleman, the one that was arrested under President Buhari. Dasuki, different successive national security advisor. We have been negotiating with terrorists. We know that.
Okay, well, look at this beneath this lead story. Even though, yes, we see strike FG will soon conclude wage awards to workers ascribed to the Minister of Works. But how about this one? Tinubu has not reintroduced fuel subsidy. This is ascribed to the APC. They seem to be replying one of Atiku's media aides who had said that the government had introduced fuel subsidy through the back door. But now the APC says no such thing.
I think there is so much opaqueness in the way fiscal policies are being introduced now, not to talk about monetary policy. So I really don't know whether we have subsidy or not. But what we just know is that the fuel prices are going on, crude oil prices rather, are rising globally, whether it's $100 or $120 per barrel now. And that must have a corresponding or concomitant increase on our fuel prices. So how have we been able to keep it at this level? The government should come out and tell us. And I do not think it's the APC that should be responding to that. There are spokespersons maintained at different levels for the federal government, for the president, for the vice president. They should respond to that. And I think the Minister of Finance actually has the Minister of Finance has the media apparatus there too. So it's not a party affairs now. This is government. Politics is over.
All right, that's Vanguard today.
Yeah, Mr. Fatade, we still need to clarify some things. When a party is in power and when a government is in the office, we need to balance out when the party speaks and when the government speaks. Good morning to you.
But the officials, the president and co, they are no longer for APC now. They are for all of us who are citizens of Nigeria. And that's important. We must keep that in perspective always.
Indeed. Let's look at New Telegraph here and what they lead with. They have this story tied to security. Customs intercepts 1.64 billion naira explosive device materials. Others, that's what they lead with. And with these riders, seizes armored bullion van without end user certificate, arrests 9 smugglers. Poverty, insecurity, bad leadership, bane of Nigeria's development, ACF chair. So now we're just talking about that matter in Zamfara, the discordant tones coming from state government and the federal government that should be working together to rescue those people. And customs intercepts this. So what's your take on that?
Now, how do you ship in bullion van, armed bullion van? That's strange. And our custom has to intercept that. But you and I know the level of small and light weapons or light arms that are in circulation in our country is huge. We have a problem with the Sahel, we have a problem with right down from Libya, and so we have problems with Niger Delta. And these are people that have humongous resources, whether it's the Al-Qaeda in West Africa, and what are the other groups that are operating there. So we are in a big mess. And by the way, these are the ones that we know. I presume, without taking anything away from our custom guys, that some would have slipped into Nigeria without being detected. And that's scary.
Oh, well, okay. So this matter, you mentioned the issue of the proliferation of small arms in the country. One will wonder, for you to even begin to import an armored vehicle or treated vehicle, personal use, you need to get the clearance of the NSA.
Must give you an end user certificate before you can do that. I know. So, who got that? I mean, the bullion van did not just drop from the skies. It's been coming from, I mean, you can track the movement of every vessel, every ship. So what happened?
Well, let's leave it and look at this other one. Yesterday, there was that news of the fire in the Supreme Court, and they have this story here. PDP cries foul as fire got section of Supreme Court judge's chamber with the riders. Incident has nothing to do with presidential poll petition. Apex Court, PCA, 39,526 cases pending before Apex Court, before appeal court. So that ties into yesterday, the appeal court resumed the legal year, and then this matter happened again yesterday. There are a lot of speculations out there as to how this relates to all the petitions that are around the country, both presidential and governorship and all.
The best way, politicians will always play politics. The best way is let there be a thorough investigation, and then let's have the report of the investigation to be made public. That's all. But as I was driving to your studio this morning, I was racking my brain, thinking that for all those high-profile fire incidents, how many of them do we actually have the reports of what happened? And I was asking myself, was the Supreme Court building insured? So if there was building or fire insurance, the insurance people would have investigated before claims are paid. So do we get to know anything that happened subsequently? That's important. But then the insinuation that has to do with the matter being filed, that's ridiculous. I don't think that should not have anything to do. But then look at what I said again, 90-something thousand cases before Supreme Court. I was in the chambers of a lawyer last week or 2 weeks ago, and he was telling me of a matter he has had at Supreme Court since 2004 that they just judgment this year. And the original litigant, by the way, has actually passed on.
All right. So that's it from the New Telegraph. Thank you so much.
Very interesting. The Guardian newspaper this morning is talking money as usual, and look at straight to the CBN. Cardoso faces Senate under FX pressure, loss of confidence. Stories on page 6, and then the issues Cardoso has to deal with: spiking inflation, volatile exchange rate, $6.8 billion backlog, contentious 22.7 trillion naira ways and means advances, ambiguous external reserves, falling bank adequacy ratio, high interest rate. But the image on the front page beside Cardoso is quite interesting. It's the 1,000 naira note eating into, the dollar eating into the 1,000 naira note, or the other way around. I don't know. What do you make of this story?
By the way, kudos to the gentleman who assumed the position of editor of the Guardian.
We're still waiting for clearance from the Senate.
Yeah, I'm talking about the gentleman, the editor. Beautiful, beautiful graphic.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And I like that. Well, by the way, I thought that the government was going to the president was going to appoint somebody who do not have links with banks. That is probably an economist that has no nexus with banks. But fine as it may, the president has made an appointment, and the gentleman has actually assumed duties on Friday, so he's being screened by the Senate today. And I think all of us know that. I'm sure all of us know rather there is no screening; it will be confirmed. So we should have better take Mr. Cardoso as our CBN governor. But the other thing for me, and I think the story in the Guardian spelled it out. Maintaining the exchange rate stability, I think that's a major issue for our central bank governor. How he does that, I don't know. And in as much as inflation is very high, I think the issue of poverty and the high unemployment rate, they are crucial more than inflation. If we can't get more people to have jobs, most likely we can bring down inflation when people have more money to spend. And then, for me again, he has to assert his independence. The last governor, we all saw that. He was tied to the apron string of the president. He was always calling in and out of the Aso Rock. We don't need that. You do not send confidence. You don't show confidence to investors or to foreigners when your CBN governor has an incestuous link with the president. And I think even while we have the CBN Act of 2007 that specified the way we can appoint the CBN governor or the way we can remove him, I think we need to take it away from the hands of just one person appointing a CBN governor. That's crucial. Kenya, for instance, actually advertises for the CBN position. Their central bank governor position, they advertise. And I'm not sure the current Bank of England governor is a Canadian. He's not English. And so we should seek the best hand. I think the way and manner we appoint the INEC chief and CBN governor must change. It shouldn't come from the president and the law. But our gentleman, Mr. Cardoso, he will maintain the foreign exchange stability is important because that determines a lot of things. And then he must promote economic growth. And then these other schemes that the CBN got involved with, anchors, borrowers, rise, whatever, that is not the remit of CBN. So the CBN should do macro and microeconomic policies, that's all.
What's your take on the ways and means 27?
Oh, that's excessive government spending. The CBN should not be involved in that too. That was too excessive.
So what do we do with that?
The state governor sounded the alarm that time. Many of us dismiss him that the CBN was printing currency. You wanted to ask a question.
So, but what do we do with that? Is that supposed to go into some sunk costs or bad debt or what?
The thing is that you must prevail on the government to get to that level that they would need that ways and means. Because we have seen where it has led us. We are in a hole. And then you could see now, what's that saying in America, that if you are in a hole, stop digging. We are still digging further. We are sinking deeper into the hole.
Well, several
I
stories.
don't envy Mr. Cardozo at all.
Yeah,
sincerely.
honestly.
I don't envy him.
Okay. Well, so many other stories on the front page, but look at this one. Labour to declare indefinite strike, mobilizes state councils for showdown. What's your take on this? A good number of people say, you know, what's it going to produce?
I think Labour goes on strike, they are damned. Labour does not go on strike, they are damned. So it's between the devil and the Red Sea. I don't know. I mean, the Pharaoh's army and the Red Sea. I don't know what the Labour will do. Because when you look at the government, all what we have had are promises and promises. Yeah. I mean, a derrick of rice or a bag of 10 kg of rice cannot solve the problem we have at hand. And the poverty is grinding and is increasing. It's grinding and increasing. Several times you see people stopping you that don't give me money, just give me food. I want to eat. And so, how do we really alleviate and ameliorate the kind of problems that we have found ourselves as citizens because of this fund issue?
But then, you know,
because of the removal of subsidy.
Yeah, while of course Labour is in talks with government,
but the government has just been saying that the government has been dancing on the same spot.
What then can government really do? Knowing, as you said the other time.
But that now calls the question that did the government think it through? And I've always told folks in government that the problem I have with people in government in Nigeria successively is the quality of thinking. And we see that in their policies and their programs. Did the government actually thought it through? By the way, I'm for removal of the subsidy. But did the government actually think it through? Or did the government ever say that it will lead us into this kind of mess we are in?
Well, there are those who would also say it's the same thing you said about Labour that the government has to face. If you do it, if you remove it, you're damned. If you don't remove it, you're damned.
So okay. I just hope that the Labour, when you are striking, whether you are going on strike or you are striking an object, I hope you have enough armor to hammer it very well.
At the Guardian newspaper this morning.
If Labour is between the devil and the deep blue sea, do they stop rowing? Or they will sink if they don't do anything?
I'm just saying that I hope their hammer is strong enough so that they will leave not just a scratch, they will leave a dent when they go on strike.
We'll see how that goes. Well, look at Daily Trust this morning. Experts decry government inaction as diphtheria spreads to 18 states. Kano leads as diseases kills 453, infects 7,202. Improved measures key to ending scourge. Yeah, I know you already looked at this one, but I'd like to bring your attention to this story above this lead story here. INEC to hold mock accreditation in Kogi, Imo, by Yelsa. Now, of course, you know how some people feel about the last elections, and probably with this one, because these are processes that they did before these last elections. How do you think people will respond to this mock accreditation now?
Let's challenge you. INEC faces now, or is facing INEC, is credibility issue. And INEC must hold the mirror to its face and see itself clearly for that image. And then you remember for Kogi, there have been issues with security. So I hope, by the way, I have fond attachment to Kogi. I did my youth service in Kogi years back, and I know the state very well. So I'm always interested in what goes on in the state. So I really hope that all the security threats, very high, how they will not come to pass. And then Bayelsa too, and Imo could be a little bit scary too, considering the security issues we have had in Imo. I think that was where they killed those the policemen recently. So INEC, I wish INEC all the best, but INEC faces a severe credibility issue. How they get above that, maybe these 3 elections, INEC can use them to restore credibility in their operations.
Well, that suggests that probably, who knows, there might be low turnouts for this one. But as you said, maybe the best we can do is to wish them the best. That's Daily Trust this morning.
Then we'll go on to the Nigerian Tribune, and they lead with that matter between the governor and his deputy. Twist in Akeredolu deputy feud. Assembly Speaker raises alarm over threat to life, says sacrifice placed near his lodge. Deputy governor heads to court, seeks injunction against removal by Assembly. We have served deputy governor removal notice. Assembly orders chief judge to constitute panel to investigate Ayeda Tiwa. Now, that speaks, this matter of governors and their deputy. This is in Ondo, but we also know about the matter in Edo. What's your take on this one now?
I don't know how our country wants to deal with the problem of governors and their deputies. And by the way, I'm sure we all know this is not the first time. We've had it right from 1999. We've had the issue of BC Akonde and Iyola Omishore in Oyo State. We've had the issue of even the last person, governor of the current governor of Oyo State, Makinde. There was an issue. We've seen it in Edo. We've seen it in was it Zamfara or whatever. So it's everywhere. I think we need to redefine the position of deputy governor. And I'm sure we know again they have joint tickets when you remove one. So we need to define that position. Oftentimes such issues are linked to the aspiration of the deputy governor to succeed their bosses, which I do not think ambition is legitimate. After all, the governors themselves, some of them tried for a very long period before they could be governors. So it's just the way we are. It's our politics. It's in us. And I don't know whether the Constitution has enough ways and mechanism of dealing with this. I don't think so.
All right, thank you. And that's it from the Tribune.
Quick one with the Daily Independent this morning. Fuel subsidy crisis. NLC takes final decision on indefinite strike today. Again, Lalong begs Labour not to paralyze the economy, says FG has already resolved one of their demands. This is the lead story of the Daily Independent. A few things have been said about that already.
I think not to paralyze the economy further. The economy is paralyzed already. They should not paralyze it further, yeah. Because, when you have basic issue of transportation, and that's ordinary level economics, where people cannot move and goods and services cannot move, the economy is in paralysis.
Yeah. Daily Independent also has this at the bottom of the page. Of course, some protest images there from yesterday. We'll be getting into that conversation later. Nigeria records 7,202 diphtheria cases, 453 deaths in 18 states and the FCT. That story is also right there. But above the nameplate, I inherited empty treasury from my predecessor, says Taraba governor. How is that possible?
Yeah, the guy was saying that the treasury was empty. And there's an interesting angle to that story. A gentleman journalist, a junior whom I know very well, reported about a year or two back, Ayodele is his name, Samuel, and in Taraba, that the governor then, the immediate past governor now, was actually involved in some corruption cases. And the guy was detained by DSS. And then some Taraba state folks were actually saying that what does he have to do, what concerns him about their state? The evidence is out now. And so kudos to Ayodele Samuel, who did that story that time. It's about a year or two now. And yet, so I believe the current governor. Yeah.
Interesting. Quick look at the Nigerian News Direct. And it's talking about oil production. NCDMB, NNPC, IOCs sign MOU to ramp up oil production. That's the lead story of Nigerian News Direct. Targets 6 months
do you ramp
contract
up
cycle.
when you can't deal with crude oil theft? So does that not follow that the more you ramp up, the more theft?
I was actually going to ask you, how do you think this might affect our, the whole forex issue?
Oh, because we don't have forex inflow. That's the problem. And the major way we can get forex inflow is through crude oil sale. And crude oil is being stolen. So the answer is blowing the wind. So does that not follow that if you ramp up, you are going to have more theft? Deal with the theft first.
Very interesting perspective. Well, we've spoken about this Ondo Deputy Governor dragging Akeredolu Ondo Assembly CJ to court, and a good number of other stories on the front page. As the Nigerian News Direct this morning, I'm bringing us to the end of a look at some of the dailies this morning. We've had with us Wale Fatade, who is former Assistant Managing Editor, Next Newspaper, and Commissioning Editor, The Conversation Africa. Thank you again for your time.
Good to be here.
So let's get into the details of one of the issues raised so far right after this break.
Clad in this signature yellow outfit, the unionists started the work from the Lagos State Teaching Hospital axis amid heavy security presence. Alausa, the seat of power, is the terminal point, but it's still a long walk to the destination. They're letting their banners do the talking as they walk Aminam. An injury to one, an injury to all. That's the basis of this protest as the TUC mobilizes affiliate unions to protest against the ban of Road Transport Employers Association of Nigeria. They say they are heading for a total shutdown after this.
Protests that have gone beyond this stage. That's from time immemorial. Are you with me, sir?
After walking for about 2 hours, they arrived at the State Assembly but met with a brick wall. It took minutes of arguments and back and forth before they are allowed into the complex.
We are organizing this protest today to further draw home our demand, to further draw the attention of not just Lagos State, but the attention of well-meaning Nigerians to what is happening in Lagos. And for us, we believe that having men and women in this honorable house, you should be able to call the Lagos State government into order. If you cannot look at the law and understand what the law is, I believe we have people here of courage who could look at it and say, no, you cannot, at the end of the day, invade a house and you remove everybody in the house and their properties, you took away their entire properties. It is fundamentally wrong.
Be rest assured that the message is going to be delivered to Mr. Speaker. I'm going to make sure that once we collect it officially, it's going to be forwarded to the office of the clerk so that, well, probably during our next sitting or however the Speaker deems fit, he would attend to these issues. And the representatives of these various groups put together will come in based on the Mr. Speaker's instruction and come in and have a discussion on the way forward.
The state government in a statement says the TUC-led protest is a plan to twist the government. In September 2022, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu ordered the suspension of Road Transport Employers Association of Nigeria, citing violence in some parts of the state. Dari Idu, Channels Television News.
Welcome back. Yes, indeed. The president of TUC, Festus Osifo, is here with us in the studios. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, Chamberlain. Good morning, Nigerians.
Having seen that protest, what kind of response are you getting from government now?
Yes, as at yesterday, when we approached the state House of Assembly, they said the speaker was not around because we intended to meet with the speaker because the earlier protest we had in June, we went to the government house. So they said the governor was not around, so we met with some government officials. So after then, there wasn't response. So we now felt that of yesterday, because we went to the government house sometime in June and there was no response, so let's take it to the legislative arm in Lagos State. So that was why we went there. The speaker wasn't there. So we now had a conversation with I think that was the deputy majority leader who represented the speaker. So we had the conversation. Then after then, we went in. They now promised us that they're going to look at it and that before the end of the week, that they are going to get back to us on the way forward on the subject.
Well, some members of LASPGA, Lagos State Parks and Gardens, say that this is not a just cause, that you are embarking, you're more or less like chasing shadows. Do you think that this cause is justified?
Yeah, they are the beneficiary of the illegality that was perpetrated by the Lagos State government. I mean, they are the people that were assembled to take over the operations of Return. Not just the operation of Return in the motor park, no. But they took over the offices of Return. They took over their vehicles. The day they went there, they carted away huge sums of money. They took away their documents. They even took away 2 buses that belongs to Trade Union Congress of Nigeria. As I speak to you today, those buses, these same people are using those buses in Lagos. And they have been generating funds from it. So who account for that? So this is a clear-cut illegality. So I did not expect anything less from them because they are the beneficiary of the illegality.
So the first protest, you took it to the government house. This one you took to the legislature. Are you planning to take the next one to the judiciary?
No, because judiciary actually gave us, just a little rundown. It was in September last year that Return was prescribed. So when that happened, we had the option of protesting. We had all the options in our toolbox. But we looked at it that no, because of a political temperature as at then, it will not be good for us to hit the street, not to hit up the environment. So we decided to approach the court. So we went to court. So when we got to the National Industrial Court in Lagos, I think May 22nd this year, if I can remember vividly, there was a judgment. And in that judgment, it was explicitly stated that the Lagos State government does not have the right to prescribe trade union, because trade union is under the exclusive exclusive list, not concurrent or residual list. So because he's in the exclusive list, so he's a preserve of the Federal Ministry of Labor, who is a ministry under the federal government and not the state. So they don't have the right to do it. So when that judgment came as at then, so we wrote to Lagos State government to say that, please, implement this judgment. They refused. So that was why in June we did that protest. Yeah, because the judiciary actually gave us the award. So there is no point going back to the judiciary. But they've appealed. Yeah. So that appeal actually came sometime in June, I think June 14th or thereabout, or June 16th. So they appealed. So when they appealed, for us, it is okay. But normally, if you appeal, you also ask for stay of execution. So as of today, what they have only done is a notice of appeal. There is no stay of execution. So if you appeal, pending when the result of the appeal comes, you must obey the judgment of a lower court. We think Lagos State should be much more sophisticated than this, because they have all manner of senior advocates who should tell them how the law should be implemented.
Your union has always said that you're a peaceful union.
Yes, correct.
Now, the Lagos State government acted the way they did because the union, your affiliate, was causing a problem. They had issues and were disturbing the area. So what about negotiation? Why go on to carry on this back and forth of rally here, rally there? You've done the first, you've done the second, and you're threatening an indefinite strike.
If you look at it, it's very clear. Remember what we said, that when they were proscribed in September, we had the option of entering the street, right? But we decided that we will not do that. We decided that we will go the path of litigation. So that is responsibility. That is a trade center that understands the temperature of the country, a patriotic trade center. So when we looked at it, we went to the court. But today we have a court judgment. So the question is that why are they not implementing the court judgment today? So what else can we do? When we've gone to court, they have refused to obey. We drew their attention to it.
You can't go back to the court?
We drew their attention to, yes, we are also doing that as well. We are also doing that to file contempt of court as well. Yeah, we are also exploring that as well.
But there's a statement from the state secretary of that same Lagos State Parks and Garden Authority, Alhaji Abdulrahman Amusan, who says that he says categorically that judgment of the 18th of April by the National Industrial Court does not by any means affect the creation of LSPGA. He says, as a matter of fact, there's still a pending case at the Court of Appeal, which is part of what you stated here. So you're saying, contrary to what he says, that your position is the right position.
Yes, because what they said is that you cannot proscribe the union. So you can set up anything you want to set up as Lagos State. You can manage your park or whatsoever. Anyhow you want to manage, it's fine. But you cannot proscribe an existing union. That is actually our cry. So if he is saying that, the court did not make any pronouncement against them, I don't have any issue about that. I'm not a lawyer, I'm an engineer. But all I understand from, reading the judgment was that you cannot proscribe an existing union. So, and do you know what will happen in Yota? Most of these state government, what they do is that if they want to do prescription, like in this case, even what is happening today in AUROTW, they have a way of sponsoring people internally to just cause some level of rancor to give them that opportunity of prescribing.
Doesn't that speak to the disunity in your camp if they are, according to you, they are sponsoring people internally to disrupt your activities?
These people could be both internal and they could also be external as well. You cannot have a body of tens of thousands of people that you could not have one or two persons that could be willing to be used. It's normal in every organization. So we are not saying that everybody that belongs to return, that they are all saints. No. But there could be one or two that could be used. If you look at the case of NURTW, they even bring people, sponsor people externally to cause a problem, to give them an avenue to prescribe, which clearly is not in the law. If you want to do it, you must follow the provision of the Nigerian Constitution and the Trade Union Act.
There's a twist here. That statement that he signed. He says, we need to state very emphatically that the suspension of Road Transport Employers Association, RTAN, in Lagos was orchestrated by we, the members in Lagos. The Lagos State members were tired of Alhaji Musa Mohammed's leadership, reckless and unholy behaviors, abuse of office, divide and rule, among which he brought retrogression to the body. All of this built up dislike for him led to the fracas, which cost many lives that occurred at Yanoba in Lagos. He says, this crisis is what prompted the Lagos State government to intervene so as not to allow the situation to degenerate into breakdown of law and order. He went on, so trying to say, look, it wasn't Lagos as people blame it. It was they internally that actually took that decision.
You know, Chamberlain, like as I've said, these are beneficiaries of the illegality. So he can come up and state anything they wish to state. But ours is this. When the case was in court, they made this, they presented this before the judge. They presented this before the court. But at the end of the day, what did they get from it? So that is our own. Our own is respect the law. We are not banana republic. We are countries that are governed by laws. So for us, respect the law, lift the ban on return, and evacuate their office. Because today, they are taking over their office. Like I said, what is the business of TUC, for example, that the bosses that we own, that return is managing for us, the bus were carted away. And today, these same people are using that bus in Lagos. Does the bus belong to them? The answer clearly is no.
Is the police aware of this particular case?
Yes, they are fully aware. They are fully aware.
Are they taking any action about it?
Yes, you know, they told us that they will get back to us. We've lost complaints. We have told them that our bosses, in fact, we went to the IGP's office to tell them that our bosses are being used by these sets of people. We are law-abiding people. We cannot attack them on the street, or we cannot forcefully gain possession of that bus. We want the law to take its course.
Because we did reach out to Lagos State government, by the way, and they're not able to make the program. So because they kept on saying, this same narrative that we see here, we've appealed. But you're insisting, if there isn't any stay, they have to obey the court decisions. But
absolutely.
I guess we'll see what transpires moving forward. But before we go on to the next one, let's go to Ayo. He's got questions for you as well. Go ahead, Ayo.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Let me ask you, Mr. Sifo, first of all, from your reading, what is the body language of the Lagos State government as far as you are concerned? Do you think there is any intention to resolve this issue in any particular way, or you think the government is just calling the bluff of labor?
Yes, from what we are hearing, that the Lagos State government is it's a bit not in charge, that there are some powers above that are actually calling the shots, some powers above that have hands in what is happening in Lagos. That's so that the Lagos State government clearly is helpless as far as this subject is concerned. But how true is that is left for Lagos State government to tell us. But officially, what they have put out there officially, for us, it's not correct. You know, in June, when we had that the engagement. So the Secretary General of Trade Union Congress of Nigeria had several meetings with representatives of Lagos State government, and the facts were labeled. And from the Lagos State government as at then, they actually said, they were represented by the permanent secretaries. The permanent secretary, Ministry of Transport. We just heard that the permanent secretary was redeployed yesterday. That was the permanent secretary we'll be having meetings with. You know, as at then, there were commissioners as at June in Lagos. So 2 permanent secretaries were meeting with us. One of them was the permanent secretary, Ministry of Transport. So we sat down, we had some conversations. So we have a seeming way forward. But we waited for a while. No implementation, nothing was done. Because after that meeting, they told us that the Lagos State governor that then was in Morocco. That so when he comes back, that they are going to sit down with him and table before him the resolution that we reached on the way forward. So we kept reaching out to them. There was really no proper response. That was what necessitated the neck of TUC to now direct the protest that took place yesterday in Lagos. So as of today, officially what they have put out there is that they have appealed, and that is what we'll go with. But on the sideline, we are hearing that a lot of powers that be are preventing even the state governor from doing what is right. How true is that? It's left for them to answer.
Well, I find that curious as well, but do you think, is that tenable for you, that there are some powers that are limiting a legitimate constitutional authority from keeping the peace in the state in which they are supposed to have authority? How reasonable, how sensible is that for you? Is that acceptable?
Yes, Ayo, like I said, I just said what is there in the corridor. But as an institution, we will stay with the official position of a Lagos State government that stated that they have appealed, so we should lay down the sword. But we are saying that a notice of appeal or a filing of an appeal is not the same thing as stay of execution. So for the other one, we are hearing from the corridor, we leave that. It's left for Lagos State government to come tell us whether it is true or not. But from what they have said officially, for us, it is not tenable because we have consulted our lawyers and they told us that that is not the way to go.
Okay. Well, this other curious issue on this particular matter. So Labour has, TUC has gone out for this protest. What did it produce for you, and what are the options after this?
Yes, for us in TUC, we would be, we have had a protest yesterday, so we are waiting for the response. Like I said, we met with officials of the state legislature, and they told us that they are going to get back to us before the end of the week. But again, we'll be holding our organs meeting today. We'll be holding the National Administrative Council meeting today, as well as the NEC meeting of TUC today, and we will also chart the way forward.
Well, just to be clear, what are the options in the books? And we're not asking you to tell us what you've decided to do, but what are the other options, on the table for the Congress in the event that things don't come from the state government as you expect?
Yes, as trade unions, like what we've always said, if they invite us for meetings today, for example, or invite us for meeting tomorrow, we are available to attend such meetings. But if we are not invited to have a conversation, or if there is no pronouncement from the Lagos State government, we have several options. One, which we already briefed our lawyers to also approach the court and file for contempt. Then that is option one. Then option two is also for us to declare an indefinite strike in Lagos. And if we do that, we could also further escalate, upward. But majorly, we are going to zero in on Lagos to ensure that they do what is right.
Are there other states in the nation that you are having a similar issue? I remember in a meeting with the Minister of Labor and Employment, the NLC president cited a similar situation happening somewhere else in the country. I'm not sure which state, maybe somewhere in the north. Is that something you are aware of? What's the details of that, if you are?
Yes, as of today, we have Lagos State started it, then Oyo State also followed, as well as Ekiti. But in those ones, we are in court with them. So because we are in court, we just kept that okay, let's follow the legal process. But because we felt that in Lagos, we already have a pronouncement, then we must push them to implement the pronouncement of a court, except a higher court decides otherwise. So in those other states like Oyo and Ekiti, as of today, there are litigations going on in that regard.
All right. But then, as you are in court with these state governments and have these issues with these state authorities, so does the TUC also have with the federal government as well. And those who would wonder whether or not you are not spreading yourself thin.
Yes, Ayo, thank you so much for thinking for us. Yes, clearly, the times we are in a perilous times. We are in a time, we are in a particular period that things are relatively difficult because we are having it from both ends, both from some state government and also the federal government. Yes, but we need to do what we have to do because for us, we will not say because there is a particular issue at the federal level, then when we have, issues that are threatening the corporate existence of trade union in a particular state, then we have to wait to solve one before another. But just note that we have the capacity to be able to multitask and look at these issues simultaneously, and that we will surely do.
So what's the update with the federal government at this time? We are hearing in some quarters that certain promises have been made, that even the Minister of Labor, I think it's somewhere on the front pages this morning, that any moment from now there's going to be announcement of wage salary awards or wage awards or whatever it is to be announced by the federal government. What's the update on that? What do you know, and what are the other options on the table concerning that issue?
Yeah, Ayo, in the last meeting we had with the Ministry of Labor, so they told us the same thing, that the president was out of the country, and that when he comes back, they believe that he will make a pronouncement. But I saw it as we were doing the review this morning, that he said the pronouncement will come soon. But again, we are really tired of soon. We want a definite pronouncement, and we want definite solutions to these lingering issues, because at the end of the day, we've been hearing of dates. We've been hearing it will come today, it will come tomorrow or next tomorrow. We are relatively tired of promises. All we want is action. Because again, Nigerians are tired of lots of meetings. They are tired of lots of promises. What we want is concrete action. If, for example, the Minister of Labor, as of yesterday, is making a pronouncement on behalf of the president. He should also have the mandate. The fact that the president went to hunger doesn't necessarily mean that governance must be grounded. We have the vice president who was back home in the country. So at the end of the day, our expectation was that you reach out to the vice president, because they also told us that they had a meeting between the SGF, the Minister of Labor, and the vice president. So we expected that anywhere the president is, they could reach out to him. This is an era of information technology, and they could have reached out to him, and at the end of the day, make a categorical statement. So we are tired of promises and promises. And our organ will be meeting today to also do some level of reviews.
Just a quick one on that issue before we move on to some other things. I could see that in that report that we showed just now, yourself and the president of the NLC are there, but then it seems that sometimes you sing from different hymn sheets. Exactly what is going on? There are meetings you attended that NLC didn't, there are meetings NLC attended that TUC didn't, so give us an understanding. Is there a crack in labor?
No, I can assure you, and I can assure Nigerians, that there is no crack in labor. Yeah, we could approach issues differently, but our objective is actually the same. Like, as I've always said, that we have a toolbox. In that toolbox, we have consultation, we have pressing, we have pushing, we have strike, we have protest. They are all within that toolbox. But the question is, what is the objective? So the objective is actually the same. I assure Nigerians that in the coming days, they will fully realize that there is no crack whatsoever within the ranks of labor.
So will NLC in the future join TUC on RTN in this protest about Lagos, if need be?
Yes, of course. In fact, before we went to the protest, we actually had conversation with the NLC leadership as well. So even in the protest yesterday, we have a few NLC people, they were out there with us. So at the end of the day, it's collaboration.
How transparent is the labor unions themselves in making all these demands for government? Because that's one of the issues that a lot of people have. Labor in itself is not transparent and not poor in maintaining that transparency and accountability to the people.
So I want you to delve further on what you meant by transparency in this regard.
In this regard?
Yes, please.
For instance, you continue to ask for the same things when the government continues to tell you that we're having issues with revenue, we're having issues with funds, we're having issues, and yet labor continues to demand. Can't labor move on to others, for instance, say, okay, these issues, this infrastructure, how about building this, how about doing that? But labor is asking for instance, what's that thing, what's that?
Wage award.
Wage award.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Inyota. You know, in our submission to the government, we had short-term, medium-term, and long-term solutions. Inyota, people will not be dying. People will not be sleeping in offices. As I speak to you today, there are some ministries that people come to work. When they come to work, they literally come in on Monday. They remain there till Friday because they cannot pay transportation back home. So we will not say, okay, government, go and build infrastructure that you would build in the next 4 or 5 years that may even, tarry for a while for those people to keep sleeping in their respective offices. That was why we said there are some quick wins. There are some things you could do in the immediate to cushion the effect, but that will not solve the long-term problem. So there are some things you could do in the medium term. Then in the long term, those are the areas of infrastructure. Those are the areas, things about road, about power, about mass housing.
Yeah.
That is for the long term. So in terms of finance, they told us in EOTA, they were everywhere. They told us that they were going to make some savings when subsidy is finally removed. So all we are saying is that the savings that you have told Nigerians, that you have told the world that you want to make, spend some of this money in cushioning the effect in the immediate and spread the others, between the medium and the long term. I think that's not too much to ask for.
All right, we'll talk a little more about some of these matters when we come back in just a moment. Stay on with us. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. We're taking a look at the protest that TUC, RTA, and organized in Lagos yesterday. We did reach out to authorities in Lagos where they are not able to attend the program today. We're hoping that they may make it at some point during the week. But Mr. Sifo, the meeting that you claim or say TUC will be holding today, will they also review the way state governors are distributing these palliatives they received 2 billion naira for?
Yes. If you remember the last time I was here, I said, in your sister's program, Politics Today, that we've set up a task force across the 6 geopolitical zones to collect reports from each of the states and report back. So this is going to be part of what will be presented to the NEC today for us to know where are we on these subjects. So across the various states, we'll take reports to know where are we relatively. Just as we've said, palliatives are palliatives. Palliatives solve the immediate problems. But there are long-term problems that will come as a result of this as well.
Is that what you're asking for? You want to see the long-term solutions?
Yes, both short, medium, and long-term. We need to know them. Today, provide the short-term measure. Provide them today. Then tell us, let's have a roadmap for the medium and the long term. That is all we have been asking for. We cannot tell government that fixed power today, for example. No, it will not work. But let's know, what are your roadmap between now and the next 2, 3, 4 years? What are your strategies to get power fixed? What are your strategies for mass housing? What are your strategies to revamp education? These are long-term things. These are not things that could be done in the immediate. But we are saying immediately, provide the palliatives, but in the short and medium term, show us the framework of what you can do.
Are you going to be asking for, like, the templates, the list, the basis for which state governors are distributing? Would that list, should it be made public, for instance, for everybody to see?
Yes, for transparency, it should be. If you remember, the very first day that the president removed the subsidy when we came here, when they were talking about conditional cash transfer, we asked a lot of questions. You cannot transfer money to ghosts. You cannot go and pick a register. Let's even assume that the register was 100% okay as at when the Buhari government was doing the conditional cash transfer. Between that period and now, a lot of people may have died. Some may have moved from that low income earning group to medium income earners, like that. So have you sanitized our register? But again, we don't also believe that even the register that was used then was even in a good state. We don't believe that at all. Because we told them, why can't you break this register into local government? You break it into wards. You break it into units so that you paste it online. So I could go and check. I know people in my unit, at least I know people in my ward. I could check online. Okay, Mr. A, Mr. B, Mr. C, okay, their names are there. Yes, are they really poor? The answer is yes. With that, you could demonstrate some level of transparency. So we said that the states, you are distributing palliatives, but today, how are you doing it? In some areas, they are inculcating civil society. In some states, they are inculcating civil societies, inculcating labor, and is relatively transparent.
How many?
But in lots of other states.
Is TUC or Labour part of, how many states would you say you're part of now?
Maybe, I think we need to look at the report clearly today, but overall, I'm not sure it's more than 10 to 15% of the states. Yeah.
You know, one of the ministers, Minister for Works, was quoted as saying that some civil servants are hindering his work, as in frustrating the work he wanted to do. I mean, it's in the media space. But I put that out there to ask this question. Is it possible that some of your affiliates might be hindering the progress that government might be making in the area of development and getting some of these things sorted?
It is the function of government to make things work.
Okay.
It's the function of government to make things work.
Some of your members to frustrate them?
I know. If any of our members is trying to frustrate government, it's the function of government to, consequence management. You bring them out. We will never defend any of our members that is doing anything wrong. We will not, come here to defend any of our members that clearly is not following the procedure or not following the processes. When they are caught, we've had some members who have committed some infringements here and there. We support the system, both management and government, to discipline them, as long as you follow the laid down procedure. So if there is any of our members today that is frustrating the process, it's the responsibility of government to bring them out, it's the responsibility of government to discipline them and ensure that the process keep going.
So, but the unions can't call their members to order to say, these are the demands we are putting out there. So you, being members of this union, need to align yourself this way, that way, that way. Is that...
We do that every now and then. If you could, I can take Pengassan, for example, which by God's grace I lead as well today. When the issue of oil theft came, when we did a rally sometime last year across the Federation. So when we did that rally, we held meetings with ourselves, and we told ourselves that we must. In fact, there is a portal that was created as a day by NAPIMS, non-NUIMS, a subsidiary of NNPC, that you could report, issues of oil theft. And we encourage our members to do what is right, and also when they see anything, they must report via that portal. So we as union, we do that. But but unions, we don't have security. We may not have as much intelligence as government has, because they have the DSS, they have the police, they have the army and all that. So they have more intelligence than us. So if they tell us that, okay, XYZ of your members are doing this, and they show us some level of evidence, we will support them for such members to be disciplined. But on our own, we preach it every now and then. We do.
So you're saying show you some level of evidence. What if there's no hardcore evidence? Would you ask any questions at all?
No. If there is no hardcore evidence, so how do we believe?
Would you bother going into investigation, or you'll be waiting for the government? They must give you evidence before you even begin to investigate.
No. If there is no evidence, then what is government actually relying on? Our government must rely on something. Before you could discipline someone, there are processes and there are procedures. And in most of these procedures, it's clearly stated that you must have prima facie evidence. So if you don't have it, then it could not be in the realm of allegation and speculation.
Okay, so what is TUC or Pengassan's position on Owando's acquisition or to take over this Ajib's 100% stake in Ajib?
Yes, when the news broke out about 3-4 weeks ago that Owando is taking over now. So first of all, we came out. Our members in NAOC across the length and breadth of the country, they went on a strike. And that strike lasted for about 7 days, where production and all that, they were shut. So after that, we were invited by NNPC. So we sat down with them and we put a framework, like a communique in place on how conversations could go on. Why did we embark on that strike? Because we felt that as you were going about such acquisition, you did not even inform those that are leading the people. So we were hearing it in the realm of speculation. So all attempts to confirm from the management of Ajib, from the management of Now, proved abortive. If you ask them, they will tell you, no, nothing is going on. So for us, when that happened, the shock came and the strike happened. But when NNPC now invited us, we now had a memorandum of understanding that, okay, let us give a 3 weeks time frame. And it was signed, a 3 weeks time frame whereby now management will now have a conversation with the staff. As we speak now, that meeting, I think the first 1 week, it's gone. They have been locked in a venue, having those conversations on what is going to happen to the staff. Because for us, we don't have real issues on who takes over any company. But the issues we are having with Owando today is that is is similar to the issues we have with other indigenous companies in terms of financing. How are you going to finance these assets? Because, Chamberlain, it will surprise you to note that today our crude oil production is declining in Nigeria because a lot of those indigenous companies that is buying the assets hitherto operated by the IOCs, they don't have the finance because oil and gas is extremely expensive. Our local banks can only do a little. You need international financiers to be able to even produce one deep offshore well. It's extremely expensive. A rig, for example, in deep offshore operations costs about $1 million per day. And you could have that rig drilling one well for several days. So it's very expensive. So most of these indigenous companies, what they do is that they buy some of these assets, they pay signature bonuses. When they do that, the next thing is that they keep producing. They don't do a lot of operations, like stimulation operations. They don't do well enhancement. So we'll not have an issue. Those wells will start declining. But when the IOCs were managing most of these assets, they have the finances to inject into it, and you could have some stable production. So that is the real challenge that we are having. So those are the conversations that we are also fronting with AGIP Group.
Does that then mean that if that's the kind of involvement you're asking for, that they involve you or show you if they've got the kind of financing needed to acquire that? Is that what you're asking?
No, we cannot ask them. Okay, two things. One, which concerns us principally, is that NAOC is telling us today that, okay, Oando, we are going to roll over your members to Oando. Let Oando take all your members 100%. So what we are asking is that, because we need to be sure that, one, our members had worked with NAOC over these years. Some had worked 30 years, some had worked at the point of retirement. And you are saying that you want to hand them over to the new company. So the question is that the liabilities that has been incurred by AGIP, the pension, the gratuity that you are supposed to pay these people, does Oando have the financial wherewithal to be able to meet those obligations to our members? That is the first thing. Then also, as a patriotic association, we are also asking, Oando, you are buying this. What is your development plan? What is your plan? What is your plan to move it from, because the entire field is producing roughly around 400,000 barrels.
Is that not for NNPC and co to ask that kind of question?
No, we as just as I said, that as patriotic people, as patriotic association, we also ask as well, because the future of our members, you are saying our members should move to you, right? So the future of our members depends on that company being a going concern. If the company falls today, then our members will go home. So
that means the members can say, look, if we are not satisfied with your plans,
yes,
we will not let this happen.
No, we will not say, if you're not satisfied with your plan, okay, now, please, pay us our obligations. We don't want to be transited into Oando. Pay us our money, pay us our obligations. I've worked for you for 35 years. I've worked for you for 30 years. Pay me my severance, and let's discuss a special separation package so that I go. If I now want to join Oando, it will now be based on my discretion. So anything I see, I take. But the years I put in AGIP and in NAOC, settle me, let me
what if they say, look, we've done the best we can here. The authorities have sanctioned this deal, so we're going to move ahead.
No, it doesn't work like that, Chamberlain, because you have people that are working in those field locations, the operators working there. You cannot bring people that are dissatisfied to be running your asset. It doesn't work like that. Who is going to run it? Is it the management of Oando that will just come there and start pressing the buttons in the field? No, you need these employees. So you must sit down with them, have a conversation with them as to the way forward.
Indeed, if they insist that they are unable to meet those demands, what happens?
I don't think they will insist. If they insist, they know the consequence. Yeah, because what we are doing now is conversation, is consultation and discussion. But if they insist, they know what the consequence will be. Our members, we'll draw our members from the respective field locations.
Ayo.
Quick one on that, because going by some of the issues that you raised with Mr. Sifo, I'm just wondering that going by, what you said about, not having a problem with who takes over any government asset. How come? Because there are those who say that sometimes, government, Labour had resisted some efforts like that before. So how come, Labour resisted privatization of the refineries in time past?
No. Ayo, what I said was that, Ajip is a private company. Ajip is not a government company. So Ajip is selling their 20% stake to Owando. So this is from one private company to another private company.
How is it different? Just a second. How is it different?
A government-owned institution to a private-owned institution.
Is Labour against the federal government privatizing the refineries?
I know what we have said. This is what we have said over time. What we have said over time, like Pengassan, for example, we have been at the forefront since 2016. Our advocacy has been that government get the refinery fixed. When you get the refinery fixed, you bring them immediately. Don't operate. You can bring in the private investors and implement the NLNG model. We were the first that started pushing that government should should use the NLNG model, where the private owners, we have maximum of
the condition
minimum of 51%.
Yes.
So it could dovetail to about 60%.
Yeah.
Then government and even Nigerians could have the other percentage. So we are not against it.
Sorry,
but what we have said is
yes,
there is a model that has worked. That's the NLNG model. So go ahead and bring about that model in our refinery.
In the event that does not happen, government is unable to turn around the refineries because, of course, the books are clear about and the papers are rife with efforts to turn around the refineries over time. The Obasanjo government, and you remember he also recalled it recently, that he called some private sector practitioners to come and take them over as they are. But Labour resisted. In fact, one of the issues that were raised with him, which he recounted recently, is that they said they couldn't take it over because, Shell, I think he mentioned specifically, couldn't take it over because of the corruption in the system. So if the federal government, for instance, says, for these refineries to work as Labour has been advocating, and federal government has not been able to do it because of its ownership, is Labour against the federal government privatizing all and let the private sector practitioner run it the way they want?
As at today, there was a time that BPE did evaluation of those refineries. Ayo, if I tell you the amount of money that BPE put out there that they will sell those refineries, you will shout. They were almost giving it away. I know, we are a patriotic association. So our point is, today, where we are today, I think we should speak more practically. Today, they've told us that the Port Harcourt refinery, the old Port Harcourt refinery, will come on stream by the end of the year. And that by 2024, the newer Port Harcourt refinery will come on stream. So when they come on stream, immediately bring in the private sector to buy a minimum 51%. When you ask them when they buy 51%, they have the controlling entity. You know, when you have 51% at the board level, operations level, you are the one that takes charge. So that has been our advocacy because the NLNG model has worked. And once it is implemented in the refineries, it will work as well.
All right, so we'll see and hope that you're going to have your meeting today.
Yes, correct.
We'll wait for the outcome of that meeting and see where that heads. Comrade Festus Osifo is the president of Trade Union Congress and Pengassan as well. So thank you for coming on and all the best.
Thank you so much, Ambali.
Well, back in a moment. Stay on with us. All right, welcome back. Dr. Nohanachi joins us next. He's a managing partner, DPH Investments. He's a policy analyst, financial expert, and infrastructure economist. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you. Nice.
Well. What a time that we are in at this point in time. Yes, in that report, we did hear the president upon assumption of office at his inauguration, saying interest rates categorically must come down, and quite encouraging, but I'm not sure it works that way economically, which you tell us about it. But we also do know that today there will be the screening of the CBN governorship nominees and their deputies, and so a lot of expectations already, lots of focus on them. What can they do to get the economy stable? Now, yes, you've gone through all of these things. What do you think?
We have experimented so many things in our model to see how we can get Nigeria working and thriving. Mostly on the CBN part of it, we have experienced several models, several patterns of bringing a CBN governor. We've had a case where we bring pure economists who have never been involved in the banking systems come and head CBN. People like Ben Soludo and co. They were never involved in banking sector. We've also experienced where we bring people from the commercial banks to head it. And we've also experienced where we bring people that are not close to the president. They're not close to the head of government to come and head CBN. Now we're having another experiment where we have someone who has been a personal friend, a colleague to the president, because they both work together in the Lagos State Executive Council and others. So, and this is another model that we want to experience. Whether is it going to break anything different? We'll wait to see the outcome. But in the new CBN governor, in my own opinion, there are certain things he just needs to pay attention to. In the last one, we had a complete divergence, a complete difference between the monetary policies and the fiscal policy. The finance minister and the CBN governor were not on the same page. So they were always fighting each other and having different instructions being issued, which they should have been in-house cleaning. And that cleaning is very, 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 very important. But now that we have, okay, the Minister for Finance, the CBN governor, the president.
Coordinating minister of the economy.
Of the economy. We're in the same state executive council and work together as a team. So do we expect a very tight relationship? I hope such a relationship won't lead to abuse, though. But do we expect a very, very close relation? Yes, I will expect that. But how does work? So having said that, in terms of the teamwork, we also look at the key function of the CBN governor. Can we get the macroeconomics work? There are 4 indices, 4 elements of the macroeconomic, from exchange rate to inflation to GDP. How can we make this take a very positive trajectory? So, if he can put the house in order, then definitely we'll see a change.
Would you consider those as your KPIs for the CBN leadership?
Yes, I will consider that, because it's always a parameter of measuring any economy in the positive trend. So you can't go beyond that. How far can you take our interest rate? We know how the interest rate is jumping, and how do you develop your monetary policy in terms of banking supervisions? Are the bank going to just have their ways and all that? Will you be able to meet up your financial obligations in terms of cash deposits and all that? Are you going to resort back to ways and means borrowing when you cannot? So these are the key indicators that you can use. You are moving into a government where you can say, like today, the parallel market exchange rate is about 1,000. Okay, what are you going to do to change it? Where's the pressure coming? If you don't detect where the pressure is coming from.
Why do you think that's the case, though?
If you don't detect where the pressure, you keep doing things. People think the pressure comes from we're not earning enough. It may not be right. I beg to differ, though. Yes, it could be a contribution factor. People also think that the demands from the manufacturers is too much, so because we're not producing. Yeah. But have we ever paid attention to the political demands of the dollars? It's on this. On the average, there's no governor that sits in Nigeria today that does not do up to $1 million purchase. Draw it down to prostate.
What's the frequency of that purchase?
Constant. Take a pattern. We have studied it. Take a pattern. At the end of every month, you see up to 5% jump in the exchange rate. Where's the pressure coming from?
Oh.
So if the people in government, let's be honest to ourselves, our corruption has been dollarized. So it's making that pressure so high. Even the corruption we have, I always say that we not only just have corruption, we have competitive corruption again. Competitive corruption. The people in government are competing among themselves. Who has the best house? Who has the biggest house? Who has the longest convoy? Whose wife got the best jewelry? That competition is mounting pressure.
Mr. Nachi,
wow.
I would beg to differ a little bit.
I listen to your opinion.
Let's play a little bit of devil's advocate here.
Okay.
I mean, this new set of governors are thinking differently. This new set of ministers.
It's an assumption.
They are thinking, that's why I said, let's play a little bit of a devil's advocate here. They are thinking different. They've seen that things are horrible. They've seen that Nigeria is in a state of debt and needs to be pulled out of that debt situation. I mean, you heard the president when he went to Onga talk about the fact that Nigeria is back. Nigeria is ready. We're moving out of where we were into a good place. That's what he said. So, if that is what he said, and he's brought a team, as you said, the people that have worked with him, have seen how he moved Lagos out of where Lagos was to where Lagos is and is moving forward. And you think it's not workable, they can't make it? What are the things you think they should be looking at when they come in there if they want to move indeed in that line?
You know one thing, I believe in visions, but I also know that vision and fission is always very difficult. And all of us, we are human beings. You remember at the beginning of every year, January, we take some decision and say, this is our decision. Come back in 3 weeks' time. Why do we not keep to it?
Sometimes 3 weeks is too long.
Okay, you know why we don't keep to it? It's a natural habit. There are two things you always fight with in life, though. As a person, you fight with a habit. As a group, you fight with a culture. Now, this team you put together, whatever how good they are, they could work in Lagos because what? The culture is the same. But when you not take it out to a place that the culture is not the same, and it is a multi-dimensional culture that you're going to deal with, the cultural reactions is different. And that affects this vision and fusion. The level it will penetrate and dive deep into it is going to be totally different. But the point I'm driving, it is easier to say, yes, oh, these people are different. Let's get things right. They didn't fall from anything. Well, they live and grow up in this house society.
I think that if his devil's advocacy, because if they're all thinking differently, we want to see it.
There are exceptions to it. There are exceptions to it, though. See, let's say this. Like I said, our corruption has been dollarized. It's a major factor. Quote me. I can defend it anywhere with data.
And you say it's usually at the end of the month, there's pressure on the dollar.
There's pressure on the dollar. It always
rises at the end of the month because of that pressure. What kind of data are you talking about?
I can defend it at the end with clear data.
Tell us about it.
What you need to pay attention to is, I'll give you a typical example. What period are we today? Today is 26. Mm-hmm. By 1st of this month, around 5th of this month, I had needs to buy dollars. I did. From the open market. How much did I get it? $8.95. This is this. Where are we now? End of the month. And take it back. First week of last month. What was it? You draw the pattern. So if the government can mount pressure, let's check this.
Yeah, but how do you prove that that is what causes it to go up like that?
Okay. The proof is very simple. The proof is very simple. Take a statistics of every state and send your private investigations to the dollar market around that place. You will notice how dormant, inactive they are from 5th of that month to 22nd of that month. Less busy. But once you just cross that 20-something, you begin to see phone calls and how they move and other. But the point is, realistically, this pressure is getting high and it is internally generated.
So wait, do the banks have all these details?
It depends on when you're doing your investigative and you know what you're looking for. Are they interested in that? No. If they're not interested, what do you expect them to do? They're not.
But so if they should be the ones who should be chief interested in this matter of the economy, thereby helping the CBN and the economy.
We must rescue this country. We don't have any other country. And the only way we can rescue this country is honesty. And if we don't put honesty to it, people in government think they can build a perfect Nigeria of their own Nigeria. It's only one Nigeria. You can't build your own Nigeria.
Is it?
Even if you make your compound, have all the water supply, you're still going to drive it to the street.
The dollar market, maybe the open markets like shut down, brought back into it's taken back into the banking halls for any time you want to buy forex. If it goes that way, would that make a difference?
No, it's not possible to go that way.
Not possible.
It's not possible. Because you cannot legitimize illegality. You cannot.
Is it realistic for people to say, look, if they address this political pressure on the dollar that you speak about, will it be realistic for citizens to expect that the exchange rate will come down? Perhaps drastically.
No, it's a gradual process. If you do that and do it drastically, you're still going to get the effect that it dropped drastically. Okay, let's put these things clearly. For hunger that just took place, you know the number of Nigerians that went for hunger? On the average, if we just put a round figure that everybody that left just had $10,000, we had over 4 planes or 5 that were fully packed of 500 people going for hunger, for social interactions and everything. And I will ask you, take 500 people in a plane and times it by 4, it is 2,000. And take that 2,000 and times it by $10,000 for each head. You know the amount we're talking about. It happened in 1 month. What do you expect it to happen? They were all political movements. Come on. Let's face reality.
Well, this defies some of those economic policies and strategies, but I guess we'll shed a little more light on this matter when we return in just a moment. Don't go away. Welcome back. So now that you highlighted all of that, of course, it's going to jar a lot of minds wondering, if that's the case, does it just work like that? Okay, let's talk about solutions then. How do we address this? Because it can't just, if it were that easy, many would have thought, the former CBN governor might have seen this because they have all this data. So perhaps they would have just said, okay, well, if this is what's going on, we address this headlong. But it doesn't work like that. What would you say is the solution to this?
The foremost part of it is most of our financial institutions and our structures we have structures to address it. Like I mentioned, the government pressure coming from the system. That could easily be addressed. We have the NFIUs, who has that responsibility to track the movement of currencies within the country. And let NFIU create the forensic checks from state accounts, even contractors' account at the federal levels, against the authorized bureau de change accounts or process of the authorized bureau de change. We'll begin to track this. And once this tracking is done, the limitations begin to play on. Some of us has followed this clearly. And let me tell you one thing. And you need to get deep into it. Do detailed investigative analysis, and you get your facts. Some of the bureau de change that does these big transactions, you know what they do? They open up a different account in the name of a farm. You will just see Chebalin Farms. So you don't pay the money into the operational account. They pay it straight into the farm account.
But where do they get this dollar themselves?
Oh, the system is so bad. The system is so bad. So some of the things we can't say it on air, so we just wonder like...
Can I say a little bit of it?
I've said so much already, but what we need to do is there should be from the CBN and NFIU side, they should run a forensics from all states and prostitutes.
So it's a one thing
take
to run,
it down.
It's one thing to run the forensics.
And constantly run that forensic, constantly. Haven't gotten this corruption dollarized is the biggest problem.
So the other side of it is you run the forensics. What do you do with the results?
You arrest the people. You prosecute them.
Prosecute them.
Yes.
So that side
the fear of the next actions will decide.
So we're back to where we started from, or where we almost always start from, consequence management. But let's go back a bit here. CBN monetary policy, Ministry of Finance fiscal policy. Okay. So in this case, CBN's one of the major responsibilities to protect the currency against the foreign currencies, right? What would you say should be the task or the immediate task of this new CBN team? They're being screened today at the Senate.
I will expect the Senate to probe more to them of their economic recovery plan. What is their take on, yes, they've been announced, so probably they've been meeting and having discussions, and I will want the Senate to let Nigerians hear from them. You have this responsibility. How do we control our inflation? It's your responsibility as CBN governor that the inflation should be under a manageable point. What is your tax? How do you control it? Do I still get assurance that I'm buying a loaf of bread 1,000 today, that tomorrow it will not be 1,002 or 1,005? So what is your plan to it? If you can control it, then let's move to the next question. How will you reduce this inflation? So this is the questions I will expect the Senate should probe on them to give us answers. And they should also open their door that, okay, I may not know it all. Create a box. Create a box. It could be an email box or a physical box and all that. Any Nigerians that feels they can, we don't need to be in government.
That's CBN now.
Yes. We don't even need to be in government. Anybody that has a solution can send you a solution and you take it.
But sorry, can we determine their capacity based on their CVs alone, saying they can fix the economy?
No. The CV is not enough. You look at them on the antecedents and where have you been, what you did, because if you look at it from that point, then you'll be able to know, yes, they can do that. Now, I was talking about being able to manage inflation. How will you manage this inflation? 1, stabilize it. 2, reduce it. And these 4 elements of the macroeconomy, how are you going to drive it down? The exchange rate, what are you going to do? So Nigerians need to hear from this team. We must see the commitment. We must see the passions that they're putting on the table.
Just before our colleague comes in, the conversation has always been that we're not producing anything, so we need to get our industries and manufacturing sector up and running. That way we have something to send out. That will ease the pressure on the naira and bring in more foreign exchange. But from what you're saying here now, even if the manufacturers are up and running, we may not even be able to get that kind of pressure off the naira.
Yes, I totally would say that statement without any reservations. But we also need to get that part. A good analysis, and which I have proposed before. I've sent it as a policy document to the government. We, Ministry of Finance, have what they created at a point in time in the name of import substitution. When you're doing import substitutions and you see it not working because you don't inject the resources, I'll take it down to you. Import substitution means I pick out one item and I focus on it to make sure the importation ceases. And it's only ceased because there's a manufacturing part out of it. And I'll give you an item they picked before and they've worked on it for several years and that substitution never happened. Furniture. Go to our common market today. You have 80% of imported furniture being displayed in our showrooms.
But even though at that time they banned, they say no, you cannot bring in furniture.
Quote me. Visit the market. Oh. So that's where the calculated actions has to be. From the physical side of it, they should stiffen up on import substitution. And also, they should look at the waivers they grant from the physical point. Total waivers granted runs in trillions annually. And these people you grant these waivers, their tax responsibility don't run in trillions. There should be a balance.
Well, I think part of the KPI, not just for CBN now, even for governors, should be that, look, they have to get, you can't do 8 years as a governor. And you don't have two industries in their states, because the governors will argue they want to get the same salaries. They got 5 billion, 2 billion each, all of them at the same time. It doesn't matter the population of your state. So why shouldn't we all tell them, in that case, then you must have two functioning industries in your state? Hopefully, we'll see what happens. But let's go to Lagos. I just got questions for you.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Well, one of the questions that I want to bring to you, first of all, sir, is in 2021, the CBN disclosed that they had introduced no less than 37 intervention programs to boost the economy of the country. And of course, you might be able to identify a few of them. The question then is, first of all, how far can the CBN go in intervening in the economy? A few of them can be listed. The Anchor Borrowers program of the CBN, which a good number of people are criticizing, ways and means up to 22.7 trillion naira at some point, and MSME Development Fund, will come to that later. But how far really would you say the CBN can go, or would you say that in the past the CBN has overreached itself in trying to intervene in the economy?
Okay, with regard to your questions, CBN has that responsibility of intervention, but whether it could be done directly by CBN, that becomes the question. The last CBN governor we had decided, because it's coming from a financial, commercial bank background, who decided to treat CBN like a commercial bank in terms of lending to even the man in the kitchen or the woman in the bakeries and all that. That is not responsibility of a CBN. I'll take example, the Anchor Borrowing program that the CBN got itself involved. That shouldn't have been. We have Bank of Agriculture. It's an institution that has been established. In most of these intervention programs, I will advise that the CBN should use already established institutions. Don't get involved yourself, because you don't have the capacity for the recovery. And that is what has happened in the Anchor Borrowing program. People saw it as just a giveaway fund. And over 20% of it is not over 20% of the Anchor Borrowing that has been recovered. It's just staggered. So if you have used the real institutions that have been established to do this process, then they will identify the actual farmers. They will have the relationship. It is not just because you created a portal, anybody that upload document and you read the document, you say approve and you fund. Hell no, that won't work. So I will recommend to this new CBN, please, yes, it is your own obligation to do economic intervention, but when you do that, intervene with already established institutions. You cannot be intervening for small and medium-scale people and you don't bring SMEDIAN to run it for you. Then you run into that problem. You cannot intervene for industrialization and you don't use Bank of Industry. You cannot intervene in agriculture-related and you don't use Bank of Agriculture. So that's because the last CBN governor was coming from a commercial bank who feels, I'm a lender, let me lend. You are the last resort of the lenders, not you lending directly. And that breached the rights and the privilege of CBN.
So does that then question for you the relationship between the CBN and the commercial banks? Because the MSME Development Fund, for instance, that you mentioned, 222 billion at some point. I don't know how that went. I mean, just as you have said, a good number of people will be asking questions. So if the CBN couldn't use the established bodies that we have, including the commercial banks, what kind of relationship do you think existed or should exist between the CBN and the commercial banks? What has gone wrong and what needs to be brought back, in your opinion?
If you want CBN interventions to pass through the commercial bank, it's a failure, clearly. I will not subscribe to that. The commercial bank will treat it like a commercial transactions, and that's all that's been happening. And I'm not talking, when I say established institutions, I'm talking about development established institutions. If you use those ones, you get, the commercial bank will always treat it from the point of profit margin. And this always plays out. Before you know it, probably is a facility that has been orchestrated and say it's going to run for 5%. Just for example, when the commercial bank will begin to put all the charges and everything, it will get to 15% and it becomes another commercial transaction. But when you use an interventional institutions, they all exist in this country. And I'm not saying they don't. They all exist. Why the avoidance? What we had in the last CBN is there's what we call market takeover, market hijack. The operator of the CBN were dancing to the tunes of the commercial bank. We need a CBN that is totally independent. Two forces were pulling last CBN, from presidency and from the commercial bank. So they were playing around this, not minding the economy, not minding the people, and doing the needful. So we need a CBN today that will take that responsibility and say, you know what? I'm here to serve the people. I'm here to rescue the economy. Okay. The economy we have is a mess up. So a rescue team is what we need.
Well, it leads to this question of micro, small, and medium enterprises. Going by the report that we had earlier, it definitely is something that calls for a lot of questions. But recently, I think it's just about 2 years ago, the Director General of SMEDAN, Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, said between 2017 and 2021, 2 million micro, small, and medium enterprises died, leading to the loss of about 6 million jobs. Is there anything the CBN can do about that or facilitate for the SMEDAN or the micro MSME community so we don't have that kind of situation continue through whichever means, as you have said?
Yes, there's a lot that CBN can do as to intervene in that matter. SMEDAN is a very reputable agency we have. SMEDAN has offices almost in all over the state. They interact with almost all medium enterprises. And the way it is structured is that they even have specialized areas and they intervene. But now, the point is, does SMEDAN has enough fund to do that? I think one of the key rescue areas that this government can focus on and this CBN can even look at for intervention, please, take CBN and work with it. Take Bank of Agriculture and work with it. Take Bank of Industry and work with it. This tripod, you should stand on it. And once you stand on this tripod, then you know you are likely to rescue the country. There are several programs that have been put in place. I'll give you a clear example. There's a program going on agro-processing zones. The last government started it. It was fully sponsored by African Development Bank, which they raised funds for that. And they are taking it up. As of today, the agro-processing zone from African Development Bank has over 10 billion. And they have called for invitation for states that are interested in it. Over 20 states has indicated interest in it. Now, if this goes through and CBN intervene on that, and this agro-processing zone are established, we will no longer have a waste of our agro-produce. That is a simple thing. There's some experiments you need to take so that you know the level of wastages that happens in our agro-productions. If for any reason, anybody listening to me and you're driving to Benue and past that, you see those women that are selling mangoes and fruit on the road, please stop by to visit them. Pretend that you want to go by the side and be a typical Nigerian, that you want to pee by the side. You will see the waste of yesterday where they dump it because they don't carry it back home. Whatever they couldn't sell, you just see them throw it away. Just go by the corner and you see that what they are displaying is minor to what they threw away yesterday. And this agro-processing, if CBN sits on it, will create jobs, will harness this wastage, and they become productive in such a way that the mini industry will begin to grow, and this is where the SMEs will multiply itself. And with agro-processing, there's some programs that the government needs to pay attention to. Today, one of the problems we have in terms of food security and SME as related to food security is we don't have commercial farmers. We don't have commercial
Just
farmers.
subsistence?
Yes. How many persons can you quote? Give me a farm that has 10,000 hectares of land in Nigeria for one particular produce. It doesn't.
Some farmer generals had their farms.
5,000, maybe 1,000 of.
Nothing, no 10,000.
No. When we talk about commercial farm,
nothing on any of those anchor borrowers, rice and beans programs.
Please, save me that headache. So save me that headache. So there should be a dedicated, devoted intention to move into commercial farming. If we can get 20 states that takes up 10,000 hectares of land, mostly in northern Nigeria, and that alone will solve our problem.
All right, so I guess we'll see what happens at the end of the day. Will this set of CBN leadership nominees, will they have the magic wand? Well, not necessarily magic, but can they deliver? I guess is what we will see moving forward. Thank you for coming on, Dr. Onohanachi, Managing Partner, DPH Investments, financial expert and policy analyst. Let's take a look at some messages from you. This one comes about TUC protest. It's from Paul. He says, is it more reasonable for TUC to protest in solidarity with their members than to compel their members to avoid excesses and atrocities that always lead to their proscription? Assuming that's the case. The proscription of Transport Workers Union is already taking place in Lagos State. Some other states have done it in the past to secure safety of lives and properties due to fighting and recklessness of the union members. Let us deal with our, quote, home members' excesses so that we can, again, quote, fight right in solidarity, he says.
Okay, and I have this one, TUC protest. Oladile Oladapo says, the furor created by the TUC Retian protest in Lagos is uncalled for. The appropriateness of the protest is doubtful, as Road Transport Employers Association of Nigeria is patently a trade association with governance responsibility akin to NECA, that's the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, NATO, and not in any way a trade union. Unlike NURTW, whose members are transport workers and affiliated to NLC, Retian is an employers association. By its name, it is manifestly an association of employers of road transport assets and platforms. The members are employers and not workers. To that extent, it is improper for it to be an affiliate of TUC and thereby regulated by TUC. There is need for the Federal Ministry of Labour and Comrade Festus Osifo to clarify the legality and appropriateness of the strike orchestrated by the TUC.
In the same vein, Polycarp Agubalom says Labour will always protest to protect the interests of their members. They are protesting the sale of a private company to another company to protect the managers who are members of Pengasan that mismanaged the company in the first place. This is the first thing they did when they resisted the sale of the refineries. There's the same thing they did when they resisted the sale of the refineries because of their members who have turned the refineries into their cash cow. Obasanjo recently spoke about this. The refineries will not work, and they know why, but they would prefer the federal government wasting money in the so-called TAMs instead of selling the refineries. Labour also opposed the removal of subsidies by Jonathan and shut down the country, all to protect the interests of their members. They are fond of whipping up sentiments against the political leaders, but they are a permanent part of the problem.
Well, that's a tough whip for Labour, but that's a show today. We do thank you all for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain, so have a very good day.
And I'm Neo Tagbe. Enjoy the rest of your day.
It's a Tuesday morning. Make the best of it. I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a good day.